second person, and then that person was crying and crying so much, we could see it like this. Then I was in a third position. I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And then he turned to me and he also opened his arms, and I went into it, like left side. I could feel his ribs, very skinny, And then I started crying. I touched his body. I started crying, and then I went on the right side and even more. I couldn't believe it. That's the power of that personality. And then he did two more. And then as he was about to go, Govinda Maharaj came out from his hut, and then he came to him to say, Dandavat Pranams. And that sadhu actually, he looked in Govinda Maharaj's eyes, like so deep. He had some kachal around, for the dust and everything. And then I could see that he was giving his mercy to Govinda Maharaj, and he touched his head with his hand, he put his hand on his head like that, bald head, like that. And then he went like this, slowly down, on the left side like this, And then he took his head on his palm, and he looked into his eyes like that, to see that something was going on. And then Govinda Maharaj, he put his head on his chest, and then he embraced, and then he went back to his hut, and that sadhu left. Somebody asked, can we go and take some pictures of that sadhu? And Govinda Maharaj said, no, don't disturb it. This is fully absorbed in his bhajan, So in this way,
you can make offense to him, the life of his
we said that. Yeah. So then my friend, he asked us, Govinda Maharaj, is that person actually one of your Siksha Gurus that sometimes you mention in your classes that you have a few Siksha Gurus? And that Govinda Maharaj said, yes, he's one of my Siksha Gurus. He taught me Rasa Tattva, Rasa Tattva, very high topic, nice topic also. We should all get involved in this one. Now we are in a time that we cannot, joke around, in our Krishna consciousness. So here, it's very, very senior devotees, we should get very deep into that tattva, Rasa Tattva, Radha Tattva, what is going on, Shastra says that we have to actually contemplate and discuss about Radha and Krishna pastime, And Govinda Maharaj was so expert in this, He knew about all these secret things, and he could guide his disciples, He gave me one time an instruction. He said, you should make films, because I was in the film industry before. And then I became so disturbed by that, because, you're going down in the jungle of full films, trying to do something like Ramayana, we need billions and billions of crores and crores of dollars, to make a film like that. I said, then he asked me, how is it going on? I said, it's going on, but, slowly. And then I became like completely dry, and the only times that when I had some, little nectar is when I was thinking about Radha and Krishna. So I told him, I said, when I thinking about Radha and Krishna, when I change my rounds, some nectar is coming, otherwise everything else is dry. He said, just do that and don't do anything else. Just do that, And then later on, when I met Padmanabha Swami Maharaj on the roof of Keshavji Gaudiya, he said, just think about Radha Govinda and don't worry about anything else. Same instruction. Different times, different persons, So they are all aligned, like this, So Govinda Maharaj said, this person is in Bhava Bhasta. He's on the stage of Bhava Bhakti. That's why he's not preaching. He's giving his mercy just by embracing you. So you got his mercy. Anytime we were speaking about this anecdote actually, two other devotees, we were from ISKCON at that time, and still are, more or less, we like ISKCON so much, We like ISKCON more than ISKCON devotee maybe sometimes, because we love Prabhupada, and we never cut our relationship with Srila Prabhupada, never, under any threat, any danger, we never cut our relationship. Srila Prabhupada is our Guru and our master, eternal master, Without him, we will not be here sitting now in front of all of us, So he said that, yes, he has given me Rasa Tattva, he's in Bhava Bhasta, he never comes down to under Bhav, like this. So therefore he has given you this mercy in this way, So Govinda Maharaj was so amazing, deep, He was also Nityananda's appearance like we did just a few days ago, He's such a personality that he could only live for Nityananda and nobody else, He said, I am the dust lotus feet of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Nityananda Prabhu. You know? And he waited for 17 days to lie the stone, how you say, for this temple. Cornerstone for the temple, which Srila Prabhupada had to wait 17 days with Govinda Maharaj. And you cannot imagine what they spoke together. They were speaking together, you know, and completely, you know, in private, you know. And so I saw sometimes after Govinda Maharaj reveal some of the things that Srila Prabhupada told him. So we are very, very lucky. Today we have so many Vaishnavas speaking, you know. Govinda Maharaj's greatness is unlimited also, and you will, everything will be revealed, a little bit of this greatness of Srila Govinda Maharaj today. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was such a person also. He was so deep, you know, that one time there was a devotee, he was sitting there in the mat, and then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked one of his disciples, he said, "Who is this person?" And then the disciple said, "You know him, he's been in the mat for 2-3 years, you know, you have seen him definitely." And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "No, I've never seen him. I promise I've never seen him." "What, you've never seen him? You've been here for 2-3 years." He said, "I promise I've never seen him." And then the devotee started to think about, what does that mean? That means that the person is not on the level of bhakti. He's just on the mental platform. And he's acting externally with his body. So this I have not seen him. I have not seen his soul involved in the process of bhakti. Therefore, when I say I never seen him, this is true. This is the reality. So you see how deep Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was. And another occasion, also another opportunity, he said, "Tell these persons to be calm and quiet." The devotee was looking and said, "This person is very calm and quiet. He's not saying anything, not doing anything. Why is he asking me to tell him to be quiet?" I was thinking, what does that mean? And then he realized, oh, that person looks very quiet outside, externally, but inside his mind is really reading, thinking about so many things, you know, which are nothing not connected to the process of bhakti. Therefore, he's making troubles. He's making trouble. We have to see how everything is being related to the process of bhakti and as a service of Sri Radha and Krishna, you know. And those Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the Vaishnavas, they can see these things and then they can correct, they can adjust, they can give, you know, so many nice advice and teachings, you know. So we are very lucky today, so many Vaishnavas. Sharanga Maharaj is from Inditala. I have not so much knowledge about his life, but there must be somebody who will speak something about it. And Govinda Maharaj, I have said something, Srila Prabhupada is there also. So we are very lucky today, so many devotees came, so I will end up now giving myself to your lotus feet, praying for your mercy to give me a little instance of realizations about the mercy of the lotus feet of Sri Govinda Maharaj. He's my Diksha Guru. You know, the first time I met him, I was going to Mayapur. On the way, I stopped in Puri. I came to the Bhubaneswar airport, and one taxi man said, "I can take you to Puri. I will wait for you 3 days in the taxi sleeping, and I will take you back to the Bhubaneswar airport for 100 rupee. 100 rupee going, coming back, and staying for me 3 days. Can you imagine that? A long time ago. And then on the way, he said, there is you have a center here. Not so much, but yet there's somebody there. Can I take you there? I said, yes. Then I went there, and Bhagavat Maharaj, you know, Bhagavat Prabhu at that time, he was with Govinda Maharaj. And he took me from the other side of the highway, you know, highway number 5, Mayapur, I think, Mayapur. And then I went to see Govinda Maharaj for the first time in my life. A long time before I took initiation from him, maybe more than 10 years before. And as he saw me from a distance, he paid his pranams to me. I was still walking towards him. I couldn't feel. I thought, what is happening? Why is doing this? You know. And then I felt, I dived, you know, at his lotus feet. He was translating Srila Prabhupada's book. I dived at his lotus feet to get some mercy, you know. And then when I stood up, It's blissful. I felt so much blissful because of his presence where, like he's so humble personality. And he was translating Srila Prabhupada's book. I didn't know what to say. I said, this is the acharya, this is the activities of an acharya, translates books, for the sake of the living and the conditioned soul, And Bhagavad Prabhu said, yes, he is such a great sadhu. And then I went, And then I didn't know that many, many years after, I took initiation from him. When my material father died, the next day I took initiation from him. I was so lucky. I always had a father, some kind of, and then now this one. And then Gurudev came, Prabhupada never left me. Govinda Maharaj is also there, and Bhakti-Lakshakshidhar Maharaj's books are there completely. So our life is completely, we can fulfill our lives totally by the mercy of those sadhus. There's so many also. You just pick and, how you say? Take and pick or something, Pick and choose, We have no choice actually. We can only do this and nothing else. So we are so lucky. Today we have nice man. Padmanabha Maharaj just arrived and blessed us with his presence. He will say something very nice also, I'm sure, 100%. Gour Premanande, Vanchakarabadaru Sakipasandu, Dhanam Padanidu Vaishnavi. He doesn't want to speak to you. Give him the mic, otherwise he's not speaking.
I came to hear Ashram and speak. Yes.
You're not going to speak?
No, I'll listen.
Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Samjena Tasmai Shri Gurudev Vanchakalpaturubhischa Kripa Sandhyacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. First of all, I offer my most respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Diksha Guru Vishnupada Astotara Sata Srila Srila Gour Govinda Goswami Maharaj. Again, I offer my most respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my sannyas and Shiksha Guru and Vishnupada Astotara Sata Srila Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. And I offer my most respectful obeisances on those feet of my Param Guru, that is Nitya Nila Pavishta and Vishnupada Astotara Sata Srila Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Nitya Nila Pavishta and Vishnupada Astotara Sata Srila Srila Bhakti Pragyan Kesha Goswami Maharaj. And I offer my most respectful obeisances unto all Vaishnavis, headed by our Tridandi sannyasis. So, today we are observing Harikatha in glorification of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada. Yesterday was his appearance day, and yesterday also, for Srila Govinda, yesterday also was the disappearance day of Srila Gour Govinda Goswami Maharaj. Some calendars have today, some calendars have yesterday. And also the appearance day of Goswami Maharaj. Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj's appearance and his appearance day. So, I spoke 2 days ago something about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada. So today I want to speak on the life teachings, examples of Srila Gour Govinda Goswami Maharaj. So Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, he appeared in 1929 from a very devout Vaishnava family. His mother and father, they were always absorbed in Harikatha, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and chanting the holy names. His father, every year, used to read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam every year. That was part of his sadhana. And Srila Govinda Maharaj, you can imagine that within the womb, he was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And when he appeared, an astrologer predicted that this young boy, that he'll get married, when he's middle age, he'll leave his family, he'll take sannyas, and he'll become a very prominent acharya. He explained that this boy, that Krishna personally has sent him from Goloka Vrindavan, that he's not of this material world. When Srila Govinda Maharaj, he was young. He was, as a baby, when he would cry, then the only thing that would stop him was when his mother, father would take Srimad Bhagavatam and put on his lap. Then he would stop crying. And then when they took Srimad Bhagavatam away, then he would cry. That he came from a Brahmin Vaishnava family, and the father was not rich. They were quite poor. So he explains that, actually, to backtrack a little bit, that in his mother, she comes from a very famous family called the Giri family, and they come from a place called Gadagiri in Orissa. That one of his forefathers, his name was, what was his name? Gopal, or before him, that he was selling bell metal, and he went by one tract of land, and there he heard a very sweet flute playing, and then he heard ankle bells, and then the birds were singing very sweetly, and then one sadhu told him that this is a sign that this is a place of Krishna's pastimes, that you should stay here and you should live here. So this person, he stayed there, he built a house, and he left his family situation and just did bhajan there. This land was named after him. It became known as Gadagiri. And then he had a son, Gopal, and Gopal, when he was working in Jagannath Puri, he was the treasurer for Lord Jagannath. And Gopal, he had the same mood of his father, of bhajan. And whenever sadhus would come who were going to Vrindavan, Gopal would ask them, can you bring me a Gopal deity? Can you bring me a Gopal deity? But nobody came back with Gopal. Then there was one sadhu in Vrindavan who was worshipping his Gopal deity. And the Gopal deity came to him in a dream and said, you take me to Gopal Giri. The sadhu thought, oh, it's just a dream. And then he continued with his life. Then Gopal came to him in a dream again and said, I told you, you take me to Gopal Giri. And this time, the deity took a stick and beat him severely. When he woke up, he could not walk. He was the manifestation of the beating that he got was still there on his leg. He was like, but somehow or other, receiving that order, he limped and he made his way from Vrindavan to Orissa with his deity. And when he got to Jagannath Puri, everybody knew who was Gopal Giri. And he went and he told Gopal Giri what happened. Gopal touched his body, and then all his pain went away. Gopal said, I'll give you everything. Because Gopal in his heart, he had been desiring so much a Gopal deity. And now Gopal has come to him. He said, whatever you want, you ask. This sadhu said, I don't want anything. You just let me be the pujari of Gopal. Gopal left his service, and then he went to the family land, which is known as Gadagiri, and there He's worshipping that Gopal deity. That Gopal deity is still being worshipped today. So that Gopal deity is the heart and soul of Srila Govinda Maharaj.
The radical?
No, in Orissa. That every day, Srila Govinda Maharaj, he would write in his diary to Gopal, whatever activities he performed, then he would write that, oh Gopal, today was like this, today was like that. This happened. One time he wrote to Gopal, oh Gopal, I want to be Prem Bhikari. I do not want to be caught up in household life. I want to leave this situation. He was not even married at that time. He said, but I do not want to be caught up. You please, you make Kripa Sindhu. Kripa Sindhu was his younger brother. You make Kripa Sindhu. You make him a householder. Let him take care of the family. But you let me be a Prem Bhikari. What is Prem Bhikari? One who's crying for prem. Who cries for prem? One are renouncing to sannyas. So, Prem Bhikari means whether one is grihastha, sannyas, doesn't matter. One who in the heart is crying, crying, crying. But here, he was saying that he wanted to take the external cloth of a sannyasi. So, from his very early age, Srila Govinda Maharaj, he was always just absorbed in Gopal. That he never played any games with any kids. That he would make garlands for Gopal. He would read, and as I said, they were so poor that he would go by the fire where his mother was cooking, and then he would read by that firelight, and then when the fire went out, by the cinders, then he would stay there, and then he would keep on reading, and then he would read himself to sleep. Like this. From beginning, he was completely attached to Bhagavatam, Shastra, Harinam, and Gopal. So, this family, Gopal Giri, that they're famous in Jagannath-puri as Kirtaniers. That is stated in the registry of Lord Jagannath, that whenever the Kirtaniers from Gadai-giri, they come, then you should bring them and they should do Kirtan for Lord Jagannath. That he had grandfather, his name was, I forget his name. And this grandfather, he was famous as a Mahabhagavat. And he was a very mystical person. So, the grandfather, he called his family, and he told his family that I will be leaving my body. And when? He said, I'll leave my body tomorrow. And that day was Advaita Saptami. So then, they did all-night kirtan. And as they did, while they were doing the all-night kirtan, the next day, then his grandfather called his son, I think Ganesham Giri, and he asked him, so, what is the situation with Lord Jagannath? He said that pilgrims, they've all gone to Konark, and from Konark, then they're heading back for Jagannath Darshan. Then, later on in the morning, he said, so, what is the situation now? He said the pilgrims have cleared the roads, they've reached Jagannath Temple, and then the grandfather said, okay, so now the road is clear, now I'll go to Jagannath. And with Harinam, he just left his body and just went to meet Lord Jagannath. At that time, Srila Govinda Maharaj, he was like 10 years old. And then he saw how his grandfather left his body. Actually, this grandfather, he taught him his first word. And what was his first words? Hare Krishna. So he said, I was very moved to see how my grandfather, who I was so close with, how he left this world, but he left the world in such a way that nobody was crying, nobody was lamenting, that everybody was just, they were just absorbed in Harinam Sankirtan. So his life was like that. Wait a second. Understand? Tell me. Because okay. So as he grew up, his father passed away when he was young. He was the oldest son. I'm going to skip some things. He was the oldest son. And when he was 21, though he was completely absorbed in Bhagavatam, in the songs of the Acharyas, Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Lochan Das Thakur, his uncles, they were kirtan gurus. And they would go from village to village and they would do kirtan. He told me personally, he said, look, I never had any interest in any kind of frivolous activity. He said, I never even learned how to ride a bicycle. He said, the naughtiest I was that when my uncles went for kirtan, they would go to a village and my parents would keep me at home. When everybody was sleeping, then I'd jump out the window and then I'd go and meet my uncles and go for kirtan. That was his naughtiness. He was just, from within the womb, he was just totally absorbed. You heard this? You heard that? He knows more than me, actually. So he was completely absorbed, just totally absorbed. So his mother now asked him that you are the oldest son, your father has passed away. To take care of the family, you need to get married. It was a very solemn thing for him. But his mother ordered him. So, very reluctantly, he accepted. On his wedding day, when everybody was meeting and rejoicing, then Srila Govinda Maharaj, he was sitting by himself and he was thinking, this is a very, very bad day. This is a very, very bad day. That actually he only met his wife on the day of the wedding day. On the day of the marriage, that's when he met his wife. So he performed his duty, and he was Srila Govinda Maharaj. For me, I see all acharyas as ideal, but Srila Govinda Maharaj is my ideal of how one should behave. All the acharyas are like that. But as for me, whenever I think what to do, then I just think of Srila Govinda Maharaj. What would he do? And though I cannot understand Vaishnava very clearly, I can't understand the mind of a Vaishnava. But I try to understand, and then I do it. Sometimes, I don't always do that actually. But when I'm in my right mind, then this is what I do. So he married an ideal grihastha. Ideal. That he was working as a teacher and taking care of his family, but anybody who came to his house, any guest, that they would give, also he was poor, they would give whatever they had, their blankets, for the benefit of the guest. From his childhood, he would get up early. His life is getting up at 3 o'clock and doing sadhana bhakti. It was not a chore for him. It was spontaneous. It was from his heart. And he trained his family like that also. That they would get up and they would also do sadhana. That he had 7 children. And he was so ideal that he met with his wife intimately 7 times and only had 7 children. And that was it. But when he was and he used to, as a teacher, then he would teach, just like Srila Jiva Goswami, he taught Harinam Vyakaran, where he would teach Sanskrit through Harinam. So when Srila Govinda Maharaj would teach, he taught his students through Harikatha. And he became so absorbed in Harikatha, Krishna Lila, that he would that Harikatha would just take over the class. And even his headmaster heard and would come, open the door. And Srila Gour Maharaj was so absorbed that even he was oblivious to that. His students, some of his students later became devotees, sannyasis, and gurus. That was his potency. That just by his teaching his students became gurus. So when he was 45 years, then he decided, not that he decided, he became, I believe, he became inspired from Lord Ramachandra that he should take sannyas. That he would go out and he would do Bhagavad Saptas or Harikatha programs. And he became famous and people would call him. Say, oh, can you come and do this Bhagavad Sapta? Can you do Ramayan recital? And then he would say, first, I have to ask the Lord. And then if he gives permission, then I'll do. And then they say, that means that's his polite way of saying he's not coming. But then he will come back and say, oh, the Lord has told me I should come and do. And this is what he'll do. So in the same way, he got the message, you should take sannyas. So when he left, first he left his house, and then in that village or next village, there's a temple of Durga. And he went and he stopped there. So then, when the family members and the local leaders, they found out, what was the name? Padmanabha. That he had taken sannyas and that he has left home. Then they found out where he went. They all went to that temple and they went to convince him that, oh, you come back. His wife said, don't bother. He will not come back. He has made up his mind. You cannot change. She said, I had a premonition that he was going to take, that he was going to leave. Then they went with one piece of paper and they said, at least do this. You put in so many years, 24 years or more as a teacher, so then you have a pension that you can sign over to your family, and then at least they can have something to subsist on. Srila Govinda Maharaj was such a person. He said that I have given my life to Krishna, I've surrendered. And now that I've surrendered, I am not looking back towards any other obligation that Krishna, I've surrendered to Krishna, and now Krishna, he will take care of them, and he would not even sign. That was his level of faith. That was his level of deep faith. I mean, we can speak about this, but if we're put in that type of situation, last week I was just in a situation, not exactly like that, but similar. I could not sleep. He knows. Anyway, I don't want to get into it. It had to do with family property, this and that. I could not sleep. I was like just besides myself. Only he knows. But he just signed. He said, no, I'm not signing. And then he left. So then, his desire was that he wanted to meet that representative of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who would inspire him in Vraj Bhakti. Actually, he did not speak this so much openly, but in Manjri Bhav. One time he told me, he said, we are in Manjri Bhav. Directly he told me. So, he traveled throughout India, but he could not find that person who he could surrender to and accept as guru in serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Radha and Krishna. And he went to the Himalaya mountains and he met so many sadhus, tyagis, and then he told them that you're doing this sadhana of tyag. He said, but in this Kali Yuga, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, Kalo nasteva, 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 gatyanita. That you should do Harinam. They said, get out, get out. And then very humbly he said, okay. And then he left. And then finally he thought that, oh, I'm not meeting my Guru, that let me go to Vrindavan. That Vrindavan is the land of Krishna, and Krishna will fulfill my desire. He knows my heart, and there he'll. So when he was traveling. When he left home, he left with just like I think a Bhagavad Gita and a bowl, and he had like red cloth, and he was traveling. Trains didn't have any money, nothing. He just did like how the sadhus they did during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Gour Maharaj was like that externally and especially internally. We may do something externally, but his heart was there. He did not take a paisa. He just took one Gita and one bowl. And like this he traveled for free in India. Sadhus traveling for free. Himalayan mountains, then he went to Vrindavan. When he went to Vrindavan, first he went to Mathura. Actually, he went to Keshavji Gaudiya. But that time also, Srila Narayan Maharaj was not there. He went to Vrindavan. And then, he had heard about ISKCON, but vaguely. I just heard this Harikatha this morning actually. And then, he saw some Western devotees, and he was amazed. Western Vaishnavas? I'd never seen such a thing. And then, either he came in contact with Back to Godhead, and then he went to Raman Reti, and he asked to meet His Divine Grace, A.C. Padmanabha Swami Maharaj. When he went first, the devotee did not want to let him in. The devotee thought that, oh, he's a Mayavad sannyasi. Because he had long hair, beard, red cloth. So then then Brahmananda Swami, then he was actually Srila Prabhupada's secretary. And then you said, oh, one Mayavad sannyasi, he was thinking. But when Prabhupada heard there's a sadhu, Prabhupada said, call him in. And then Srila Prabhupada started speaking with Srila Govinda Maharaj. He asked him where he was from, about his family. And then Srila Prabhupada, he asked, have you taken sannyas? And then Srila Govinda Maharaj said, no. Then Srila Prabhupada said, I will give you sannyas. Then, he left his home on Ram Navami. That was his relationship with Lord Ramachandra. So Srila Govinda said that when I met Srila Prabhupada, then in my heart I knew that this is my eternal master. And when Prabhupada told me that he'll give me sannyas, then that was the confirmation, because in my heart I was looking, because as a child he was praying that, oh Gopal, I want to be praying Bhikkhari. I want to be sannyas and preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was his desire. He had no desire in his heart. He only had that one desire, to be a preacher. He told me, he said, you don't know how much pleasure I get from preaching. Don't know how much pleasure. One devotee told me one thing, Nuru Hari. I don't know where Nuru Hari got it from. He said that Krishna asked Srila Govinda Maharaj, he says, what is your desire? He said, I want to be a preacher. Then Krishna said, Tatashtu. Tatashtu, he'll be a preacher. And how he would preach, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Look, give me my time, because then people complain. 12:05. So, Maharaj, what time do you want to speak?
I'm not thinking about it. I'm listening to you.
Okay. Okay. So, where are we?
How you
No. Sanya, okay, so Srila Prabhupada knew his heart. Srila Prabhupada knew his heart. And then and then Srila Prabhupada immediately engaged him in, Srila Prabhupada asked him, do you know Hindi? And he said, yes, I know a little bit of Hindi. And then Srila Prabhupada, he said, so I want you to translate our books into Hindi. And then Srila Prabhupada immediately gave Srila Govinda Maharaj a room there in Krishna Balaram temple, gave him a room, and had him to translate the books. So then the devotees were thinking, how is it that this new person has come? And then immediately, Prabhupada has given him a room, all facility, this and that. And they're thinking, you know, we Westerners, we can be a bit about ourselves, right? So they said, so one time one devotee went to Prabhupada and said, hey, Prabhupada, that boy. And then Prabhupada said, what boy? He said, that boy. Which boy? You know, and then Govinda, he said, he's not a boy. He's a Vaishnava all his life. You're the boy.
He's a new man. He said he's a new man.
He's new.
That's what he told him.
He said, no. He's a Vaishnava all his life. You're new. So then, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, he very quickly received Harinam and Diksha from Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada, I don't know the exact chronology of everything here, but Srila Prabhupada, he received a donation of some land in Orissa, in Bhubaneswar. And then he went there and he told Srila Govinda Maharaj, he said that, I want you to develop this place. But the devotees who were traveling with Prabhupada, this is Brahmananda Swami's brother, Gargamuni, the one, the Bhagavad wasn't so much there. The one used to be in the army, big collector in Japan, Guru Kripa. They said, Prabhupada, why do you want to build something here? That this place is in the jungle. That better we go to Jagannath Puri, we build in Jagannath Puri. And then later, Srila Prabhupada, he met with Govinda Maharaj. He said, look, they're saying that this place is not a good place to build a temple. He said, they don't want. He said, but I want. So you stay here. And this place will be one of the best temples within ISKCON. You stay here. So Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, he took that order to his heart. So he was staying in this land. It was in the jungle. Dacoits used to go there. In fact, he was sharing a hut, and then next to him there'll be some gundas smoking marijuana, but he'd be there just chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, completely undisturbed. Snakes. I mean, I even heard story of snakes, but that one time he was chanting, and he was absorbed in Harinam, and then he felt something on his lap. And then he looked, and it was a snake, and he just went like this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Devotees, Prabhupada would send devotees to come and help him, but they would last like very little time, and they would leave. Nobody could stay. So then, Bhagavad Maharaj, he was there with him some time, and Bhagavad Maharaj was senior to him. He was then Bhagavad Prabhu, now Bhagavad Maharaj. He was senior to him. And he was telling Gour Govinda, do like this, and bring in another agenda to Bhagavad. When you meet Bhagavad Maharaj, you can ask, he'll tell you better. He was bringing another agenda. So, external reason that Gour Govinda Maharaj, he went to Srila Prabhupada, and they said, Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. The external reason was that because somebody who's sannyas, then you can't just order them around like that, that he can now become, he's like an authority in his project. Prabhupada said, you know what it means to take sannyas? That you have to be completely fearless, always know that Krishna's with you. And then there were devotees who were there. They were in Hyderabad, or Allahabad, Hyderabad. And then Govinda Maharaj didn't say anything, Prabhupada didn't say anything. So then later on that year, on Ram Nomi, he left home Ram Nomi. Then the next Ram Nomi, then they were having the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And Prabhupada wasn't giving sannyas to anybody. I think maybe there was, for whatever reason, he wasn't giving sannyas to anybody. And then they said, but will you give to Tripurari? And then Prabhupada said, okay, I'll give to Tripurari. So this was 1974, 75. You were there? Yeah. 1975. So then, when it was time for sannyas, Tripurari was there, and because Govinda Maharaj, he was a Brahmin by birth, and actually when he was 17, he went on a vow, vrat. And what was his vrat? His vrat was that he studied all the Vedas, all the Upanishads, everything. He just completely absorbed himself. And at 17 years old, he would sleep 2-3 hours a night and just completely absorbed. He was doing his schoolwork, everything, but he was totally immersed. What to speak of all the Vedas, Upanishads, the books of Acharyas. He was completely absorbed. So he was a Brahmin, a Vaishnava, pure Vaishnava Brahmin. So he was performing the 5 sacrifice. And Prabhupada was sitting up there. He was there. Maharaj was there.
There were 2 places. No. There were 2 places, and everybody was wondering, because only Tripurari Maharaj was sitting to take sannyas. But there was another seat, and there was also 2 Tridandas there. There were also 2 Tridandas, so everybody was wondering who is the other candidate for sannyas. And so Prabhupada is sitting there and watching, and the yajna is being performed, and then the person who's performing the yajna, which was Govinda, he was Govinda then, he suddenly completes the yajna, then he stands up and he walks over and sits down in that place. And he's the other candidate. That's how it happened.
So then all those devotees who previously had heard the discussion between Srila Prabhupada and Gaur Govinda, when Srila Govinda asked that I want to take sannyas, then now they understood that Prabhupada has given permission. So then Gaur Govinda Maharaj, at the sannyas ceremony, they had to give some talk to the sannyas candidates. You remember?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. So then what
He was talking 20 minutes.
Yes. Actually, it's in a book by Rita, actually. And at that time, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, and he spoke about sannyas ashram. And then when he spoke, Prabhupada became choked. And then Prabhupada said, he has understood what is sannyas. What is sannyas? So, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he was there in Bhubaneswar, and he was developing that place. The local Aryan devotees, they were not even coming. Only one young schoolboy, his name was Shruti, he would come. And Shruti would come with he later became Satyananda Prabhu. And Shruti would come with his bicycle. And then Gaur Govinda Maharaj, as I said before, he didn't even know how to ride a bicycle. So he would ride with Shruti on the bike, and Shruti would carry him, and then they would go go on their preaching work. And in this way, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, then he was preaching, and he was always, his whole life, he was engaged in his sadhana and his bhajan. He was completely immersed in his sadhana and his bhajan. That was his life, that was his joy. And before Srila Prabhupada, he left the planet, then Srila Prabhupada, he came to Bhubaneswar. And he stayed there for 17 days. The devotees, they had booked him in the best hotel, Srila Prabhupada. But then Srila Prabhupada said, no. I will not stay in that hotel. I want to stay with my son, Gaur Govinda. And then he stayed in a hut next to Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So they just made them knock it down. But for always, Gaur Govinda Maharaj had his bhajan kutir, his hut, and then there's Srila Prabhupada's hut. And even though Gaur Govinda Maharaj later on, by Prabhupada's mercy, such a beautiful temple was built, and so many beautiful rooms, AC, everything. Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he just stayed in his hut. Because there, Prabhupada gave him, he said, the instructions that Srila Prabhupada gave me, he said, I never had, because that time we used to have tape recorders, and every time we speak, so many tape recorders there. He said, I never had any tape recorder. I recorded it in my heart, what he told me. I recorded it in my heart. So, Srila Prabhupada, he told Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he told him, he said that you should translate my books into Oriya, you should preach message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you should develop this project in Bhubaneswar. He said to develop this project, you need to have your own men. So you have to have disciples. You have to initiate. Now, I don't want to get controversial. Just speak. So then, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, I think 1985, Srila Prabhupada left in 77. He was preaching there in Bhubaneswar. And some devotees, they start to understand that, that there's a jewel in Bhubaneswar. There's a jewel in Bhubaneswar. Actually, in 1979, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he came to Mayapur for meetings. There's Mayapur festival. And then there was the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Daita Madhav Maharaj. Gaudiya. And then there was a big kirtan. And in the middle of that kirtan, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj fainted. So then they took him, he lost consciousness. And they took him back to ISKCON, to the long buildings. And there, the devotee who was staying with Lagudi, they said, Lagudi, that, he has fainted, that you help him. So then, Srila Gaur Maharaj, he did not come back. They thought that, he'll just sleep it off. But then the night passed, he never came back to consciousness. And then they were wondering, what is going on? So then they took him to some doctors. They said, no, he doesn't have any kind of sickness like that. Then some of the leaders, they said, he's haunted by a ghost. Take him to a ghostbuster. I don't want to, I know the names of who said what, but I don't want to do it. So then, said, take him to a ghostbuster. And then they took the ghostbuster and said, no. That he's completely free from any influence of any ghost. And then one astrologer, he said no, that he has not got any sickness, that he's in Bhav. And then there was another personality from Ramanu Sampradaya, Ramanu Sampradaya Acharya. Then he also said, that he's in Bhav. Then Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, very dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada, then he came, and then he took a thread, and then he put on his nose. He said, what is his sickness? He's in Bhav. He's in Bhav. Srila Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, he paid his obeisances to the body of Srila Gaur Maharaj. He said, I'm so happy that Swamiji, that I see that at least he has one Mahapagwat. So then, finally when Srila Gaur Maharaj came back to consciousness, he was conscious, but not of what was going on here. He was in another realm of existence. Huh? He came back to consciousness. But he was not with us. He was in another realm. And sometimes he would run, oh Krishna, and he would not see the wall. He would only see Krishna. And he was running and just running into the wall. That he would run towards a window, and then, like now you have the metal thingy blocking, and now in the long building they have like that. But there's nothing like that. And he would almost be flying out the window, and he'd be completely unconscious of what's happening in the external situation. Lagudi Prabhu said that when he would fall and he would knock his body and head against the wall, he would just bounce off and he felt no pain. He was totally detached from the body experience, but he was in another realm. Sometimes he would just clap and chant because he was in kirtan in that world. And they state, Lagudi, he said that he didn't know what to do, how to do. And the devotees, even though Krishnadas Babiji Maharaj has already come and said that, that he's in Bhav. Astrologer has said he's in Bhav. The devotees were still afraid. They said, they're thinking that, he's haunted by some very heavy ghost. Take care of him, take care of him. So all the devotees left, but Govinda Maharaj, he couldn't go because he was in such a state, he could not be taken anywhere. He stayed in that state in Mayapur for 2 months. Then finally, when they could take him, then took him to Bhubaneswar, and then he was in that state still, continuing on. That, if you look in Ujjwala Nilamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains that when one goes into the state of Bhav, Asta Satvika, that he explains in the chapter, maybe 15th chapter, 14th chapter, then he explains that you have the different stages. You have Dhumayita, you have Jwalita, you have Deepta, you have Udipta, you have Sudipta. The Dhumayita, that this somebody who is called rough, actually 1 or 2 symptoms are manifesting, but they can be covered. That somebody who is entering into that stage of Bhav, that they may manifest 1 or 2 symptoms, but they can cover it. Then Jwalita. Jwalita means like, there's meanings to it. Jwalita, 3 or 4 symptoms are manifesting, but you can conceal them, but with difficulty. Then Deepta, 3, 4, 5, and you cannot conceal, and they last for a long time. Srila Govinda Maharaj was in this state for at least 2 months. He said 6 months? Maybe, I don't know. But he was in this state. So you can understand what is his level. That spiritually, scientifically speaking, that somebody who is not on that level of Bhav or Prem, they could not manifest those symptoms. It's impossible. It's just impossible. According to the science of Srila Rupa Goswami. So, gradually, he came out of this state and he had to be orientated to his body, the world, everything. It's explained. And then in 1985, then he started to preach.
Maharaj, do you remember him explaining how he looked at his body when he started coming out?
No, you know?
So I'll speak
Okay.
up. So he said he was coming out to external consciousness, and he was looking at his body.
Speak. Bolo. You go. No, because I don't know this thing, so I know a little bit, but I didn't want to speak because I'm not so clear on this. Speak.
No, I just...
His servant said, actually, it is material body. And he said, material body? Oh no!
Like that, huh? Yeah. So in this way, he had to be orientated back into the material world. I mean...
I also heard that when he was in that internal state, he was given a choice by Krishna.
Really? I didn't hear that.
You never heard that?
I never heard that.
And Krishna asked him, do you want to come now? Or do you want to stay? And he said, I want, because my Guru Maharaj has ordered me to preach. Therefore I want to come back and I want to preach. Wow. That's why he became such a world, acharya.
Wow.
Yeah?
Just come in when I'm speaking, okay? That's amazing. So, look, let's do some time management because Maharaj has to speak. It's 12:25. When should I end? Because I can go on for like 3-4 hours. So, no.
Who's the host?
The host is serving. He's serving. He's left it for us. He's left it for us. So let's say that Shukanto Prabhu. Okay, he's downstairs cooking. So it's 12:25. Okay. Okay, so what he told me was that after prasadam has been served, bhog has been offered, that there's a place downstairs for prasad. He said, so there are no kids here, which he said the kids can go downstairs and take prasad, this and that. So shall I continue for about 20 minutes, which I'll stretch to half an hour probably, and then you speak for half an hour?
I don't know if that, because we've got to go into the schedule.
1:30. No, he's okay with that.
He is.
As long as you all are okay to control yourselves a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Is that okay? So then, his preaching mission started. And then he started traveling. First place he went was France. He went to France. You were there. Were you there? Yeah. You were in France?
Yes.
And then, Shoti Maharaj was there. And before he would give the Bhagavatam class, I remember when I saw in Bhaktivedanta Manor, I saw this old man walking in because he had some problem with his leg. He had some operation, and he was so strict that they had to operate his ankle, and go right in. And he wouldn't take any anesthetic. He refused to take anesthetic. He just tolerated. So he came. He was on Satyananda Prabhu. Now that boy Shruti was grown and was walking, and this feeble old man, and he looks like if he's going to fall. And then as soon as he sat on the Vyasasana, then he would transform. And then for 15-20 minutes, he would preach the glories of Bhagavatam. Yao Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavastane Ekanta Shrokoro Chaitanya Charane. And then he would speak and sing and speak and sing and speak and sing. By this time, it's time for Bhagavatam class to end. But that was just his introduction. Then he would start Bhagavatam class. And then when he would start to speak, then he was interactive. He was a teacher. So devotees would be there, and then he would speak to them. Ore Baba? Yes? You know? And then he would start to speak, and then he would deal with the audience, and normally he'd deal with devotees in the front. And devotees in the front were normally the sannyasis. And then, Maharaj, can you speak? Can you tell me this tattva? Can you tell me Guru tattva? And then he would start hammering, and they would shrink. Because he would speak the importance of tattva vichar. You have tattva vichar, you have apara vichar. Apara vichar means apparent consideration. That, chant Hare Krishna, and go back home back to Godhead. Then he would say, you know, Nam Tattva. Then he would explain that if one, at satsanga, nam nahi hoy. That if one is not in association, he would always stress to be in association. And to be in what type of association? To be in the association of pure sadhus. Those pure sadhus whose heart, there's no lust, no anger, no greed, no envy. And on top of that, their heart is saturated with ras moi. He said, you associate with those sadhus. Satam prasangam mamavirya samvido bhavanti vikana rasayana kata. That their kata is rasayana, is full of ras. Next line. Shradha Bhakti Anukramicity. And he would roar. He would just roar for like 2 hours. And I was sitting there and I was like amazed. By this time, I'd already taken initiation for one guru. His name was Jai Tirtha. He fell down, he later died. Then I took initiation from another guru, Bhagwan. Also fell down. What do you mean? I know. So then I was listening, and after hearing his Harikatha for some time, I'm going to condense things. Then I realized, oh my God, this is a pure devotee. This is a pure devotee. Because I'm a very proud person. If I hear somebody speak, I'll listen and I think, okay, I can do that. I'm like that. I'm just very proud, arrogant person. You know, I play humble, no humility. I'm just looking, sizing everybody up, hearing the Harikatha. Okay, all right. But then when I heard Srila Govinda Maharaj, oh my God. Oh my God. Woo! I thought, that's amazing. You know, that's amazing. One time, I was in bunk bed in Brahmachari ashram, and we used to go out and we used to come back late at night doing collection. And then there was a tape of his left by one of his disciples, and I was listening to it. And then when I listened to it, and he was speaking, and then immediately I just started to shake. I said, oh my God, that this is real Guru, and I have to surrender. And in my life, I've never surrendered to anybody in my life. I don't know what it means. I was shaking. I knew I had to surrender to this person. So many things to talk. After some time, I went to hear him in Bhubaneswar. And he was roaring. He would speak. He would speak in Oriya and English. It was 2 to 3 hours every day. And we would sit there. And he had this cane. You ever heard of, who's the fellow of Lord Nityananda who had that cane? Abhiram. Huh? Yeah. He had a whip. And when he'd whip, then he'd infuse them with praying. Srila Govinda Maharaj had this stick. He had this cane and his words. That when he would slash into you, there was one devotee, Premji. Premji says that the disciples should go to the Guru and open their heart, and the Guru will do the operation. So Premji, he opened his heart. He had an addiction. He had addiction to pornographic magazines. It's lucky they didn't have internet back then. So then he went and revealed to Srila Govinda Maharaj. Srila Govinda Maharaj and Premji always used to sit right in front. Premji! Pornographic magazines, you like? Pornographic magazines? You hog! You hog, Premji! Why you like stew? And he whipped into him, right? For like 1 month, you know. And then 2 months. And then 3 months. And then he'd go traveling. And when he'd travel, Premji was there. And he'd just embarrass him in front of everybody. He used to do this too. And disciples used to run to the front to sit in the front. Me, I don't like to sit in the front. I always sit a little bit in the back. And then he have his cane. And then with his cane, you like stew? Jagadish? You and what's the tall one? Mathuranath. Mathuranath. And Jagadish, you too. You're like brothers. You sleep in the same bed, passing stool and urine. You hogs. Take it to boom, just knock them. You know? And devotees who are outside of that circle wondering, what the hell is going on? You know? And then the devotees would be running to get the mercy. Right? They'd be running to get whacked. One time he hit Jagadish Pandit 38 times. 38 times. Bop! 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 Me, I never went close. but one time he picked me up in the back. He said, Govinda Bhakata, you Durbhagya. Durbhagya means very unfortunate. I want to give you praise, but you're Durbhagya, you're running away. Hey, Govinda Bhakata, very Durbhagya. And you know, you feel, it's like, then I understood what was happening. When he was chastising you, external is a chastisement, but he just fill your heart with nectar. He completely intoxicates you and just take you to another realm. And externally it's looking like you're full, but internally, but I had such a false ego. I was battling, you know, with the humiliation and the nectar, right? Externally there's the humiliation, and inside there's this nectar. This is Guru. This is Guru. That when they're chastising, when they're giving special mercy, and just like Lord Nityananda, he would always speak about Nityananda Prakash. That Guru is Nityananda Prakash. Means that he is a direct expansion of Lord Nityananda. That as Lord Nityananda is giving mercy, then Guru also, being empowered by Lord Nityananda, then he's giving that mercy. He can give full praying like that. But because we don't have the receptacles to receive, then he's giving it to us incrementally, step, drop by drop, by drop, by drop, by drop, by drop, by drop, according to. But he can give the full thing. He would preach this. Who is Guru? That Guru, you should understand that Guru is Supreme Personality of Service to Godhead. That if one does not have that asset to give, disciple is coming for praying, please bow. If Guru does not have, then don't take that responsibility. He said, better you wait. If you have that inclination, then you go, you do association, you do strong sadhana, you become qualified, then you do. So he was preaching so strong that it just, wherever he went, devotees, light bulbs would come up. Boom, 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 boom. My God, that's the one. And then devotees would start traveling with him. And we go to a temple, and then so many devotees from the temple would go and travel. And then his band would increase and increase and increase and increase. And he started to create a revolution. Especially on this point of Guru Tattva. Because by this time, so many devotees had gurus who had fallen down. I had 2 gurus who had fallen down. I know people who had 3 gurus who had fallen down. So they're wondering, what is Guru? So then he manifested at this point to show what is Guru. He explained Guru Tattva so clearly, so strongly. So then, after some time, the leaders of the different areas where he was preaching, they became intimidated. The sannyasis, they became intimidated. The other gurus, they became intimidated, totally intimidated. By this time, I take an initiation from him. My initiation was another story. I won't even go there. It was amazing. It was just totally amazing. Amazing. What an experience I had with Harinam. At the end of right before I was to take initiation, then I realized that, oh, I know that he's the real thing. Because I was listening to his Harikatha, and then I said, Lord Nityananda, if he's the real thing, not that I know he's the real thing, but if I'm ready to accept, then give me a sign. And then he would give a class. And then he would just read my heart. And just ask, Lord Nityananda, give me another sign. Then finally I said, okay. I was already a temple president. I was a temple president in ISKCON, but no guru. So then I said, okay, I'll take initiation in a year. Because you have to prepare the relationship. I knew that he was the one, but I knew that I wasn't the one, and so I wasn't, sincere. So then I got inspired that I should take initiation from him before the year's up. And one of my friends said, yes, you should do so, his disciples. So then the day of the initiation, then I knew that he was totally authentic. But I had not taken the time to develop that relationship. And through the whole thing of having 2 gurus who had fallen down, my heart was still not ready. And I was a temple president, and I was preaching to the devotees in my temple how you have to be very careful who you accept for guru, that you should develop your relationship, blah, 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 blah. I was full on. And I said, you're a big hypocrite. How can you do it? Now you're going to do the same thing. And then in the morning, that morning, I was walking around in Bhuvaneshwar temple, and all of a sudden, it's like Harinam came from my heart, on my tongue, like it never manifested in my life up to that point. And then I was just walking, and it was like if I was on air, and I was just like going around. Initiation came, and then I was going down to take initiation. There was a devotee who had three fallen gurus, and he happened to be with me. He said, Govinda, I don't believe you're doing this. And then I walked in, I took the initiation, and after I looked at Srila Gour Maharaj as we were walking up the steps to the temple, I said, do you know what just happened to me? He just went, Ore Papa! And then just started going on. It was just like completely amazing. So in this way, he was preaching so powerfully that devotees, they became intimidated. They became intimidated. And to the point that they stopped him from going to preach in their zones. He said that we can have people who give dissension who are outside of the family. He said, but when it comes from your own family members, he said it's very painful. Srila Govinda Maharaj, he would roar, and you think, oh my God, who's this person? But as soon as he finished class, then he talked like this. Very soft, very quiet, very shy. He was a completely different person. Totally different person. So I would program. We can, okay, to continue a little bit?
The 1 o'clock is the prasad.
1 o'clock is prasad.
We can continue the prasad, like half of the people can go for prasad, half can stay there, and they can come back.
Okay, I'll start to wind up. Where was I? I have a memory problem. Yeah, so I took initiation. I was kind of in the movement longer than practically all his disciples. So I was like his secretary for Europe. And then he told me initiation, he said, you've been around for a long time, I'll treat you different from you. He told me like that. So then we're arranging the European tour, and we had our big Mercedes buses. I had the Gouranga van, and then Prem Priyojan, he had the Nityananda van, and then we just loaded up and we just started traveling. But then when it came to going to the area, Germany, then it was a block. Nothing. Then a friend of mine in America said, oh, that actually the GBC there, I won't mention his name, he's no longer so much active, that he has blocked everything. So then I called up the GBC, and then I said hello. And then very difficult to speak to, but because I had a very strong Sankirtan party, it was very big on book distribution, and we were known in Birmingham for our book distribution. So then he took the phone from me. And then I said, I had his disciples. His disciples were in my temple. So then he said, I said, I hear that you're stopping Govinda Maharaj from going to your place. And then he said, no, you talk to the temple presence. I said, no, they told me that you're the one who's stopping everything, Then it clicked. He didn't know I had become a disciple. He said, are you a disciple of Govinda Maharaj? I said, yeah. And then he said, that's the problem with you, disciple. I said, what do you mean? And then conversation just ended. So like this, they just like blocked him, you see. And it was very, very painful for him. But nevertheless, that in any situation, that Srila Govinda Maharaj, he would preach in unrelenting way. It's like when we were traveling with him, and then devotees would be there to kind of counter, then it was like, we were totally in a bubble. And it was like, we knew that we were going to be victorious in every situation. And it was fun, just watching the action. It's just, okay, how is it going to happen? Like this, like that, like this, like that. And it was completely amazing. And he was just like disseminating anybody that was opposing, just with Siddhanta. He was so humble, so humble, so humble. But as soon as he spoke, it was like roaring. And you just, oh my God. One time, there was I was arranging a program in another country, and there was a double booking. Okay, so the other guru who was supposed to come was there at the same time, and Govinda Maharaj he was so annoyed with me. We have to go somewhere else, right? So then when we came back to that place, that other person has spoken, when we came back to that place, then he just manifested such a bhav, and he was roaring. And everybody who was there said, oh my God. To see the difference, I mean, there's levels. In anything in life, there's levels. We like to think that everything's... No, there's levels, you know. And when you saw that, I said, woo! Crazy, crazy. And anyway, so I have 15 minutes, yeah? Okay, so in this way he was preaching and inspiring so many devotees. And those devotees who did not really want to accept the absolute truth, then they saw him as fear personified. That's just the way it is. People's views have changed over the years. Now that he's not there, you know, then they feel less intimidated. They, oh, Govinda Maharaj is pure. Oh my God. It was a little bit different back in the day. It was a little bit different. I was a secretary, so I had to deal with it. So we came to Mayapur in 1996, February 96. It was actually February 9th, 1996. Yeah, I'm not good with years. 93, something like that. So then it was today, February 9th, 1996. What's the name of the deities? Should I tell his disappearance last time? Or end it? Continue? Okay. So then, during the meetings, there were rumors, actually, that Srila Govinda Maharaj is going to be kicked out of this one. Those were the rumors. So, I was the secretary, I kind of knew so I would find out what's going on, come back and report, this is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. Then he told me that day, earlier that day, he said, you know, all this politics, all this, he said, this is nasty. I don't want to stay here. This is nasty. Then in the evening, some devotees, they came to ask some questions of him. And they were asking why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent so many years, 18 years in Jagannath Puri. And then Srila Govinda Maharaj, then he started to explain in a nutshell one pastime from Brihad Bhagavatamrita commentary of Baldev Vijayabhushan, where Krishna is in the walker and everybody's in the assembly hall waiting for Krishna. Krishna is not coming. So then Baladev, Uddhav, Narada Muni, they go to Krishna's room, and Krishna, he just has tears are flowing from his eyes, but he's not conscious. And they think, how do we bring him to consciousness? And then they said that, oh, Narada Muni, you should play Braj Leela Kahani. You all know this pastime? So play Braj Leela Kahani. That you play this Braj Leela Kahani, then this will enter his heart, he'll arise. But then they said, but if we play Braj Leela Kahani, that he is in such a mood that when he comes to external consciousness, he'll run to Braj. So then Narada Muni, he told Uddhava that Uddhava, you should go to Braj and you should tell the residents of Braj that Krishna is coming. Uddhava, he told Narada Muni that, oh, Narada Muni, I accept you as my Guruja. That whatever you say, I have to follow your instruction. But I have one consideration for you. Previously, I went to Braj, and I told them that Krishna was coming. I saw the plight of Maharaj Nanda, Mother Yashoda, the gopis, Srimati Radharani, and I told them that Krishna's coming. And now, so many years have passed, and Krishna never came back. So now, if I go again and tell them that Krishna's coming, will they believe me? So then they were in the dilemma what to do. So then Subhadra, the sister, came of Krishna, and she said, don't worry, I will tell. that especially the gopis, they won't trust the Purushas, male form. But because I am lady, my heart is simple, not crooked like a man, they will trust me. And I'll go and I'll sit on the lap of Mother Yashoda and I'll tell her that, oh, that Krishna's coming. And just he's stopping along the way because so many people are making offerings. So then Baladev, hearing this, he became so much excited. He said, oh, so then I will go. And then immediately he got his chariot and then he was ready to go. So in Jagannath Rath Yatra, that first Baladev comes. And then Subhadra. And then after, then Lord Jagannath. So then after Baladev, Subhadra had gone, then Narada Muni played his veena, and playing his veena, Pratila Kahani, Krishna, he got up, and then he said, hey, what are you doing here, Narada? What are you doing here? And then he looked, where's my flute? Because he was absorbed in Braj, and he came out, and he was still in Braj. And he said, where's my flute? Then they explained what happened. And then they got his chariot, and he was rocking, intoxicated. And they gradually got him onto the chariot. In the meantime, Baladev and Subhadra, they've reached Braj. Baladev, seeing the situation with the Brijvasis, seeing how after so many decades that they've become so emaciated, that they've become, the separation has reached such an extreme point that it cannot be described. Then Mahabhav manifested within Braj. He has gone into Braj. So Baladev is a Dwarka, but now Braj mood has overpowered him, and the separation mood has overpowered him, and his eyes become very big. His hands go into the body, his legs also. And in this way, he has this form. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also manifested similar form. When he manifested the form of a tortoise, his hands going into the body, such Mahabhav Prakash. Then Subhadra, she comes also, and actually by providential arrangement, she comes and the same thing happens to her. Krishna's chariot, finally it makes it to Vraj. Actually, Srila Govinda, he didn't get this far. Then as he was telling this pastime, then he was feeling some discomfort. I wasn't there. I was in Mayapur, but I wasn't there at that time. Oh. Then he was feeling some, Shilgopal was feeling some discomfort. But he kept on going because he wanted to finish the pastime. Because when he told pastimes, he became completely absorbed in the pastimes. But the situation was it's getting difficult. Then finally he said, please, excuse me. To the people who were there, the devotees who were there, and then they left the room, and then he was there with his servant, Atmaram Prabhu, and then even Purana Prabhu was there, and then they brought Gopal, and then they had to lay him down on the bed, and then they had Gopal, and then they went and they called the doctor, and then as he was breathing, and when Srila Govinda Maharaj used to breathe, it was just Maha Mantra. One time, I was serving him in Bhakti-Rasamrita. I never got to serve him. I'm kind of a shy person, and I've got so many naughties, I get freaked out with really pure personalities. but this time, I was there. Madhavananda Prabhu, he let me serve, because Madhavananda, he got sick. So then that night, I was serving. And then I have to get up, help him when he has to go to the bathroom, because he go by himself. And then when he was sleeping, he goes, Hare Krishna. And his breathing would in out, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. The whole night. I was, what? And then, so anyway, just to bring it to the point, that when he was breathing, then he was absorbed in his meditation. And in this way, his breathing became less and less and less and less, and he left at 7:30, 7:45.
How many minutes did that go on for?
I wasn't there, so I think I heard about 15 minutes.
Very short.
I heard 15 minutes, and then in this way he left his body on this most auspicious day, the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. So we are very fortunate to hear about the glories of such an ideal personality. An ideal personality. Prabhupada said, my very dear son, that he was so strict that Prabhupada gave him the order that you translate my books into Oriya. So until he translated a certain amount every day, he did not eat. So he used to have prasad like 11 o'clock at night. We used to stay up at night to get his Mahaprasad. Anywhere he went in the world, he was like that. That once he made his mind, then he was so strict and so powerful, but at the same time, so soft, so soft. He said that in Bhuvaneshwar, the first set of deities are Gour, second set deities, Krishna Balaram, and then third set, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. He said Lord Nityananda is in all three altars. He said this is the place of Lord Nityananda. He said that anybody who comes here, I will not turn them away. So much mercy. But if you really messed up, he's so heavy. So we pray to mercy of Srila Govinda Maharaj that please bless us, that we can have just a spray of his determination for pure bhakti and his dedication to his Srila Prabhupada. Some people say that he said that Srila Prabhupada told him, tolerate and cooperate. Tolerate and cooperate. So some people say that even though the situation was so difficult for him in the society, that because Prabhupada gave him the order, that it was easier for him to leave the body than to leave the society. Like this.
Amazing. Amazing. Now my day is complete. I wanted to hear the glorification of Srila Govinda Maharaj on this day. So my heart's desire has been fulfilled. I'm only going to speak just a few words, very short. So, Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Itadavani Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gour Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama. My Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of my beloved Siksha and Diksha Gurudev. Gurudev's Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramanzas Tatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramanzas Tatarasata Sri Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And on this disappearance day, Titi, of my most exalted, worshipful God brother, Srila Gour Govinda Goswami Maharaj, I pay my unlimited Dandavat pranams at his divine lotus feet. I Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas, all the Vaishnavis. So, I only saw Gour Govinda Maharaj knowingly 2 times. Once, as I told already, in 1975, when he received sannyas from Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, I didn't know who he is at all. So, yes, so the second time that I saw him was in Los Angeles. And I believe that it was about 1994. We might have been there with him. So I had come into the ISKCON temple, as I sometimes would do. I would come in to take darshan after the morning program, after breakfast, everything like that. When I came into the temple room, there was this effulgent personality speaking, giving class. And I had heard about Gour Govinda Maharaj. That I'm going to explain. I had heard about him. But he gave class, as we heard. His classes were very in-depth and very long, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. That was very unusual in ISKCON. And usually the leaders would not even stay for his continuation of his class. They're looking at their watches, and we have to do such and such. But anyway, I was graced to listen to the last probably half of his class, which was about 1 hour long. So, you know, I had heard of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj in 1977 from who? From my godbrother Bhagavat Prabhu, who is now Bhagavat Maharaj. Because we were with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan in his final days. And when I met Bhagavat, I didn't know him that well, but we knew each other somewhat. We were both brahmacharis and serving in India. And then he told me, oh, you know, I just came from Bhubaneswar. I was there with our godbrother, Gour Govinda Swami. I says, oh, And he said, you know, I just spent 1 year there with him. Prabhupada had told me that I should stay there. And I want to tell you something. I think that this godbrother, Gour Govinda Swami, I think that he's a pure devotee. I said, what? You have to understand something, that when Prabhupada was on the planet, none of the Prabhupada disciples would dare to ever say about someone that they're a pure devotee, especially a disciple of Prabhupada. So I was a bit shocked. I said, what? He says, yeah, you know, I witnessed him. I was with him every single day, all throughout the day, and also in the evening. And I watched him, how he lives, how he practices his bhakti, how he preaches. I mean, I have to draw this conclusion. I think he's a pure devotee. I said, really? So that was the impression planted in me just by talking with him at that time. I did not see Gour Govinda Maharaj after Prabhupada departed, 1977. So many years went by. There's a whole story of my connection with the institution of ISKCON and how my Siksha Guru Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj was rejected by the leadership, even though Prabhupada gave his instruction, you should go to him for guidance. But they rejected that, and they actually banned him, this pure devotee, Mahabhagwat, who even Prabhupada said is my Siksha Guru. Okay? And so I left the institution, and that's a whole story in itself. So from 1984, when I was in England, then the years went by. And I remember in the early 1990s, one of my godbrothers, named Pran Kishore Preraka, he was in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it was probably around 1992, I think it was, and he told me, he said, you know, our godbrother, Gour Govinda Maharaj, he came to the Bay Area, and I attended one of his classes. I said, you did? What was it like? Because you have to understand, I didn't hear any of Gour Govinda Maharaj, about him, nothing. Okay? During all those years. This is like 12 years, or no, like 8 years went by. And so I was curious because I had that planted in my heart that Bhagavad said he's a pure devotee. So I said, okay, tell me about it. Tell me, what was your experience with him? And then Pran Kishore is an extremely shy person, even to this day. We all know that. He can't even barely speak in public, but he's extremely deep. He was one of the first persons, the first Western devotees to come to the lotus feet of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj in the early 1980s. So, by this time, in the early 1990s, now he's telling me, he says, yeah, you know, I was in the room, and there was one pillar in the room. So it was a little bit of distance away, but one of our godbrothers named Chiranjeev was sitting towards the front, and we just heard from Maharaj about what is called the hot seat. They called it. The disciples called it the hot seat. That if someone was sitting like right there in front of Govinda Maharaj, they would be the object of his causeless mercy. And so in this case, Chiranjeev was being singled out. And Govinda Maharaj said, Chiranjeev, do you know what is the meaning of Chiranjeev? And Chiranjeev was like, no, Maharaj, please tell me. Chiranjeev, ancient Jiva, wandering in the material world forever and ever, like this, you know. So then Pran Kishore was telling me this story, and he said, you know, there was a pillar there, and I slinked behind the pillar so that I would not be singled out by him. So I listened to the rest of his lecture. I said, okay, so what was your impression? Completely astonishing and amazing. His realizations were so incredible, how he expressed himself. Okay? So, that time I heard about him. In 1994, I'm in Los Angeles, and then I heard that class from him. And I was watching him, because his disciples were surrounding him when he left the temple room. And I was remembering what it was like to be with Srila Prabhupada. Because he was very elderly then, great, deep sadhu, and they were surrounding him, and I'm thinking, wow, these devotees, these ISKCON devotees, they have some special relation. He's like an exalted personality, you know. So then what happened was in 1995, by the arrangement of a Gour Govinda Maharaj disciple, I went, and Pran Kishore, my godbrother, came a little bit later, and we went to Malaysia. And the reason why we went there was to make money by selling art, paintings, and so forth. All the Gour Govinda Maharaj disciples, they were living in Malaysia for like 3 years before that. And they were collecting huge amounts of money to build that temple in Bhubaneswar. Yeah. So when we came there, we were assisted by a couple of Gour Govinda Maharaj disciples. Ananta, he was there. And then... Huh? Yeah, Tapasvi Maharaj. And then the other was Gokul Prabhu. So we were staying in a hotel, and one day Gokul Prabhu came, who's a disciple. He got first initiation from Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. And we were sitting in the hotel room, Pran and myself. And by that time, you know, we were very, very deeply involved with our beloved Siksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, at that time, for a number of years already. So he started to tell us all these stories. And for like 2 hours, he's just like telling us all these stories. But the majority of the stories were about the whip. And he told many stories about how he himself had been beaten by the stick. He told so many stories. You witnessed that, right? So like, we're listening to this for an hour and a half or 2 hours, you know. And then finally it ends, you know. He says, I have to excuse myself and go. So after he left the room, Pran and I looked at each other and we said, wow, I'm glad we're with Srila Gurudev. So anyway, during those next months, I had extremely extensive and deep association with at least about a dozen of Gour Govinda Maharaj's disciples who were also living right there in Kuala Lumpur. Okay? And I used to go to the apartment of Gokul because he moved one day and got an apartment with his wife from Bali. And they were doing programs regularly, and then I think Prem Prayojan, who was Parantapa at that time, they were working on Gour Govinda Maharaj's book, and then they lent me some tape of Gour Govinda Maharaj. It's like one of those incredible lectures of his about the pastime that you were telling. Because that book was the embankment of separation. And it has that pastime in that book, you know. So, like this. A desire arose in me at that time. Very, very strong desire. That I would get the association of Gour Govinda Maharaj the next time that I would go to India. And even though we were spending all of our time with our Gurudev, I wanted to take off a little bit of time and personally meet Gour Govinda Maharaj, hopefully in Bhubaneswar, and hear from him, like that. So a number of months went by. During that year, we also went to India for Kartik Brajmandala Parikrama. Yeah. This is 96. So this is now going into 1996. And in the beginning of 96, I left to go back to America from Malaysia, and I stopped along the way in Taiwan. And I was there for 3-4 weeks. So then I got a phone call from my godbrother, Pran Kishore, who was, I think he was in Vrindavan at the time. And he said, I have some very, very heavy news to tell you. I said, really, what? He said, a very, very great Vaishnava has left the world. I said, who? You know, because the way that he was telling it, I didn't know, is it our Gurudev or who, you know, who? Then he said, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. I said, what? He left the world? How did he leave? Then he began to tell me the story of how in Mayapur, that what you just heard, how he was just simply talking with a few devotees in his room and telling these amazing pastimes. And then he just said, I cannot speak anymore. He leaned back, and within a few minutes, he left.
Actually, he got to the point where Krishna met Radharani.
Yes.
And there was eye to
Eye-to-eye union.
Yeah.
Was that his final words? Those were actually his final words. Yeah, yeah. Unbelievable. So, then, after he told me that, and he began to tell, some of the disciples could not even accept that he's left his body, because he had gone into that state of bhav earlier in his life, and so a lot of the devotees were thinking, no, we're not going to accept that he's left his body. You know, but...
The astrologer said that he would live till 90 also.
Yeah. So, and also one thing I remember is a lot of the Gour Govinda Maharaj's disciples told me that he used to say that in the year 1996, Prem Yuga would begin. Is that correct? In the year 1996, Prem Yuga would begin. And the Acharya will manifest at that time. So, you know, naturally the Gour Govinda Maharaj's disciples were thinking, that's him. And I was also kind of thinking, that must be him. I had such a desire to meet him. You know why? Because I understood now at this point that he is giving what Srila Narayan Maharaj is giving, what Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. He's giving the essence of all these teachings. I became familiar with that. And I said, it's unbelievable to me that such a personality, my own godbrother, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, is in ISKCON, and he's giving all of these things. I have to meet him. So at that point, when I heard this from Pran Kishore, that he suddenly left, I was stunned. I was in shock, actually. And then he said, but there's one more thing I have to tell you. I said, okay. He says, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. Then he said, Gurudev is going to the West. That means Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan. I said, really? He's going to the West? Yes. This is like right after I heard that Gour Govinda Maharaj left the planet. Then I suddenly hear Srila Narayan Maharaj says, now, we always wanted that he would be able to come to the West. That another very great personality would be able to come to the West. And then I said, I'm going with him. What? Where is he going? First he's going to Holland, then he's going to England, then he's coming to America like this. And then that was the first I heard about his tour. So after that conversation, I went up to the room that I was renting. I had that book, Embankment of Separation. I put the book on some shelf, and then I performed Guru Puja with incense, ghee lamp, and then I broke down crying. Because how can this be? That just when I'm about to meet him, now he has left. But I want to tell you one thing. I have met him by his teachings, by his katha, because it's all over the internet. All of his videos, his audios, his books, and his disciples and their memories. I've definitely had his darshan. And therefore, I say on this day of his disappearance, he is definitely one of my Siksha Gurus. No doubt about it. Definitely he is one of my Siksha Gurus. And I've seen that what he has given is another installment that was very, very much needed, especially during those years that he was in the institution, because this is the completion of what Srila Prabhupada was giving. And he told us, I remember, the Govinda Maharaj's disciples always told me, they said that Govinda Maharaj, he always says that everything is there in Srila Prabhupada's books, but it's under lock and key. My mission is to show that everything is there in Prabhupada's books. Yes. And that's why every single time he gave class, he'd have a stack of books of Srila Prabhupada. He'd already look up the different quotations like this. And that was an amazing, amazing contribution that he made. Yeah. And then later on, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Raj also was completing. And he's also reading from Prabhupada's books, Chaitanya Charitamrita, why Mahaprabhu came to this world. And he's giving the next installment that is required for all the Vaishnavas, not just now, but into the future for hundreds and thousands of years. So now everything has been given by our gurus. There will be more, there's more books also, and there will be more Mahabhagavats, and they're already on the planet. They just haven't revealed themselves necessarily. There are some that have revealed themselves. But this is the mission of Mahaprabhu, and now it's going to go full speed ahead. And what is happening in the world today, you know, all the stuff, and all the politics and all of this, it's preparing the world. Because even astrologically, there's going to be an incredible period that the people of the world become completely receptive to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Yes, that is what is taking place now. But there's going to be a lot of crushing before that. Srila Prabhupada also told that. Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Maharaj chanting 2 lakhs of Harinam every day. He also told that 2/3 of the world's population will be gone. So there's a lot of things happening. What we are here, sitting here in Mayapur Dham, it's almost as if we're in a completely protected bubble, right? We don't even think about, what's going on. But this is the nature of Mahaprabhu's mission, because now everything is being prepared. Prabhupada said after the war, then he said preaching will be very, very good. He said the people will have completely lost their faith in the atheistic science. This is the big problem. Science has replaced religion. And the atheistic science and all their gadgets and all their, mesmerization, it's going to be shattered and crushed. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And on his Divine Transcendental Appearance Day, one of his my favorite quotes, Western civilization must be crushed. And that's what's happening now. And this is our acharyas. Our acharyas are the ones that have prepared the whole world for this flood of Krishna prema. And there's going to be a lot more, and it's going to go on for hundreds and thousands of years. And even our Gurudev said, it will go on till the end of this Danya Kali Yuga, because it will not be like the other Kali Yugas, and Kalki will not come. Mahaprabhu's mission will go on till the whole Kali Yuga. Srila Govinda Swami Maharaj ki, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai, Sachidanand Gaur ki, Nityananda Mahajan ki, Panchatattva ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Maharaj, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Padmanabha,
Shri Guru Parampara ki.
Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavadebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Mahaprasadam ki